Local business leaders were in Bangor today to give some lessons in leadership. Grace Bradley takes us there.
I see my job as a privilege for helping to build our community.
Building the community through local business was the aim of Wednesday's 60 Ideas in 60 Minutes Forum, hosted by MaineBiz.
It is an opportunity for CEOs to gather and share their advice for business leaders on what's made them successful, lessons that they've learned through their business career.
I'd love to hear from anyone that would like to contribute on how you went about correcting an individual to eventually go the right way, because their intentions weren't right and they were not delivering.
I would say there is an art to being out of your comfort zone and learning a role, as long as you are humble, hardworking, committed to learning, and you're not going to lie.
This opportunity for accessible networking and leadership advice comes at a great time for Bangor, per the Chamber of Commerce President Deb Newman.
But we're seeing an influx of new residents, which is also great for our economy. And we are seeing a growth in businesses. We are seeing some change with business owners retiring and selling their businesses. But that is being really backfilled with new businesses opening up and starting in the region.
Especially if we're able to have this type of events here in Bangor. People don't have to travel very far away to have the opportunity to ask questions, listen, and learn from each other.
Whether it's managing a car dealership, an airport, or a nonprofit organization, these panelists are able to collaborate to identify key traits of a leader that extend beyond industry.
I think about it as this beautiful puzzle, right? We're all unique pieces, and individually, each member of that panel is a great leader. But when you put the group together, those puzzle pieces really come together.
So it was a great opportunity to also kind of do a test check and make sure that some of the things that I'm working with are on the right path.
Grace Bradley, WABI News.
I've always been able to do what I really enjoy doing. And I think if you can pursue that,
Bangor.
you're winning.